All right, people, we've reached the end of the novel and the discussion of it. So again, if you want me to clarify, or if you want to add to it, or you want to make connections, I'm happy to help you out in the comments below. But what you need to understand from these last two chapters, the biggest part of these last two chapters, is that it's not enough for Winston to agree with everything O'Brien says. It's not enough for Winston to say, I love O'Brien, in a twisted sort of mentality. He needs to love Big Brother with an undying devotion. So that psycho kind of love that we see in TV shows, that we see in like that fanatic sort of love that we see from people who are fanatics. We need that kind of love. That's what the kind of love that Big Brother accepts, and only that kind of love. Whereas if you say 2 + 2 is 5, that is what is the right answer, and you must not question it. That's the kind of love that Big Brother wants at the end of the day. And Winston, even though he's like, yeah, I'm okay, I agree, whatever, 2 + 2 is 5, I'm good with that, it's not enough. So they take him to room 101, which is where the torture happens. And this is where the threat of physical pain is enough for him to give up Julia and say, no, I can't deal with these rats eating my face, these hungry rats being in a cage wrapped around my head. No, you must do this to Julia instead of me. I give up, I'm broken, that's it. So it's kind of anticlimactic in that sense, that a lot of people say that Orwell was trying to be, he was trying to make an anticlimactic ending. And, because it seems like, oh, he just gave up. But it's important to note that they broke him. They broke him mentally here. The fact that he had one last thing that he was holding on to, that he didn't sell Julia out, that was his one last fleeting promise in his head. And he was proud of that when he was being tortured, that when he's being tortured, he didn't give into that, right? And he even was happy when O'Brien was like, yes, I'll give you that, right? So they say that, a lot of people say that's an anticlimactic ending because the rats didn't eat his face, and like he didn't feel the physical pain of that. He didn't die, right? But what seems to be anticlimactic isn't really anticlimactic, because death would have been an easier out for Winston at this point, which is something that the reader needs to think about. Is death always the worst ending? And can something like mental torture, if you're broken in here and you're forced to live out your life without ever using anything up here ever again, is that an ending that would be ideal in any sort of scenario for someone who was so like searching for feelings, searching for history, searching for knowledge? It could almost be like the worst death possible for him, the slow crawl to death. But in the end, he's back in that cafe. So he's back in that cafe. He can lead, He's back in that cafe. The awareness that he is a prisoner to the physical pain his body can endure breaks him. And because it means he has no reason anymore to live, act, or think, which is entirely Big Brother's goal. Winston is now an ideal member of the party in the sense that he will love Big Brother. He has nothing to feel anymore. He has nothing to think about anymore. He can live out his days just drinking his party gin and not thinking for himself and being a cog in the wheel. So it even comes to the point where when he sees Julia and he's got the freedom and he's out of room 101, he finds her repulsive. The thought of having intimate contact with her is repulsive to him. And this is another theme that's discussed in another sort of futuristic dystopian society in Brave New World, where you learn about the aversion therapy. So all of this isn't really anticlimactic when you think about it. It is a little bit, and you can argue that in the simplest of forms, and sure, you'll get a good mark if you do that on an essay. But if you delve deeper into it, it basically says that the physical being is still there, and they probably, like, imagine just having to walk through life. This is the torture. You as a former agitator have to go through life without any more feelings. You just have to be a human shell of yourself. And for Winston, it's probably the worst ending possible, which is, again, what the Ministry of Love is trained to do. Make you a shell of yourself, make you not feel anymore, and still make you a member of the cogs that turn the wheels for your machine to move forward. So it's almost disheartening at the end that he doesn't get his escape that he wanted. He wanted to rebel and then die at the hands of Big Brother, and they made sure that he didn't get anything, that he's gonna suffer until his end. And we have to say goodbye to Winston in the Chestnut Cafe, listening to that song. And it's just, I think so, right? It's just, or maybe I just imagine that in my head. But it's the hardest thing to think about for people who are rebellious or for people who fight against the system, and it happens all over the world. So I really encourage you to look at connections to this part of the novel. And, you know, it's really interesting. In Myanmar right now, someone who, Sung Yi, I think her name was, who was a political prisoner for so long, was released, but then ended up being a dictator herself. So, I mean, that's a good example to use here. I think you should check on it. And she ended up inflicting the abuse that she got onto other minority groups in her society when she became the leader of Myanmar, which is, you know, that old saying that hurt people hurt people. But now she's also in a position of power, and absolute power corrupts absolutely. Much can be discussed with the ending of this book. And I hope, if you have any questions, I did go on a bit of a tangent there, but I wanted you to make those connections. So again, it can be argued that it's an anticlimactic ending, but at the end of the day, if you delve deeper into it, it's almost like a perfect demise for our character of Winston, who wanted so bad to be something other than what he was told to be. And instead, he's destined to live out as a shell of a man with no more emotions, and as a part of the machine that will push Big Brother forward. All right, bye. It was fun.